Do any of you remember 3D? Now, I understand I'm dating myself a little bit because 3D is not really prevalent anymore. I mean, one could make the argument that it's still being kept alive by a very dedicated fan base, but it doesn't have the widespread use that it used to have between the years of 2009 to about 2014, I would say, when it kind of officially died and it was just kind of held alive on life support for a short while. But the reason why I bring up 3D is because I found a 3D TV, but not just any 3D TV. I found the PlayStation 3D display. And so, I'm going to get into it with this video. And yeah, I'm going to wear the stupid glasses for the video. Okay, so real quick before we continue on, let's go over a brief history of 3D in entertainment. I'm not going to actually give you a history of 3D in entertainment. I'm going to be going back to 1920 when some of the first 3D was poorly implemented, and then in the 1950s when they kind of did a half-assed job of implementing 3D, and then the 80s when they did a resurgence. Not talking about any of those. I'm actually talking about 2009. Technically, 3D was kind of starting up in 07, 08, but 2009 was when it really kicked off. And that is with the movie Avatar. You know, the dances with Smurfs, the blue cat people with James Cameron, that kind of stuff. And when that came out, everyone was just blown away by the 3D because it was the first time we saw 3D without the red and blue tint on the glasses. It was just regular clear glasses. It was clear 3D. Everyone was impressed. I was a tad disappointed in it simply because I had never really experienced 3D before. At that time when I saw Avatar as a kid, or a teenager, I guess you would say, and I was expecting to see shit jump out of the screen at me, and I only got a little bit of that. It was very subtle 3D. Thankfully, a couple of movies down the road really fixed that issue of mine, and I got to really enjoy 3D. I'll talk about that a little bit more later. But when that movie came out, the 3D craze began. And everyone was talking about 3D, how movie theaters, they're going to only offer movies in 3D now because it's so amazing. That never happened. But there were people talking about this, is 3D the wave of the future? And when the home 3D TVs came out, holy shit, was that a rat race unto itself. I mean, one, those things were insanely expensive, but they were also sought after. And it was kind of a Giga Chad, Big D energy move. If you were a guy and you had a man cave of any type, the big move was to get a 3D TV. That was the boss level move a guy could do back in the early 2010s. Forget a pool table, foosball table, recliners, mini fridge. You could have all that, but the peak of the man cave was a 3D TV. Probably because they were starting to show sports games, especially football, American football, not European football, in 3D. They don't do this anymore, but that was how big the craze was back then. Get ESPN, that now has games in 3D. And it was holy shit, this is really taking off. And so that was the biggest boss move you could do if you had a man cave and it's hey guys, I just got a 3D TV in the cave. And it's like, oh my gosh. So 3D was really, really taking off. And during this time, when 3D was taking off, 3D gaming started up. And I won't say this is the first 3D game that was available, but it was definitely kind of the one that made people go, oh, I had no idea that was a thing. It was one of the biggest main market games that advertised you could do this on 3D, and that is James Cameron's Avatar. And when that came out, everyone was just like, oh my gosh, that's possible? And you saw this huge wave of 3D games coming out that had these little 3D badges right here. And every time I saw a game that had that 3D badge that I bought, I just was like, you're mocking me. Because it's like, yes, you have this game, but you will never be able to truly experience the full range of this game because you don't have a 3D TV. And so every time I got a game, it's like, cool, I'm excited to play this. I can't play in 3D though. And so just every time I saw one of those 3D badges on the front, it's like, you're mocking me. Obviously, that was probably intentional to get a dumb shit like me to actually buy a 3D TV with the stupid glasses. I understand how ridiculous I look in these things, but let me go with the skit, alright? And so during the height of 3D, PlayStation decided to come out with an exclusive TV specifically designed for their PlayStation 3 console. And no, it's not called the PlayStation TV. That's something else completely different. No, they called this the PlayStation 3D display, which is what I have here. And this thing, this motherfucker, retailed at an MSRP of $500. Half a grand. Back in 2011, November of 2011 was when this thing was released, and they were asking for $1,000 for this thing. A PlayStation 3 did not cost as much as this during that time. I'm pretty sure it didn't cost as much during that time. Yeah, I'm pretty sure a PlayStation 3 did not cost $500 at that time. These are getting a little uncomfortable. So when this came out, it was like kind of the peak of 3D. 2011, that was like when 3D wasn't going anywhere. It wasn't until like 2012 you started seeing a hint of 3D going away. 2013 was like, okay, it's starting to go away, and like 2014 it was dead. Some people say it was dead in 2013, but like in 2011 it was here to stay. And PlayStation came out with this interesting like piece of gaming history. I always was like intrigued by this like TV or display or model or whatever you want to call it, because it was like specifically designed for gaming. And at that time I wanted a PS3 bad, and I didn't think I was going to be able to get a PS3, let alone one of these things. This is one of those items in my past as a younger fellow. I was thinking, there's no way in hell I'm ever going to get my hands on something that expensive. I didn't understand that stuff drops in price down the road, but as a little kid, I thought that was like always going to be the price. And so you may be asking yourself, well, Chris, how much did you spend on this insane historical relic that cost $500 back in the day? Well, I did not spend $500 on this. I did not even spend $400 on this. One may go, well, $300, that's a pretty good deal for originally being $500. No, I did not even spend $300 on this. And then you may go, wow, $200? I understand I'm milking this skit for all it's worth, let me do it. You're thinking, wow, $200? That's incredible. And it's like, no, I did not even spend $200. You'd be thinking, okay, $100, that's a pretty good deal. Yes, I have seen these go on eBay for $100 with the original box. I do not have the original box. So that should tell you that I did not spend $100 on this. Well, surely I must have spent 70 or 80. No, I did not even spend that. I didn't even spend $50 on this. No, I spent $25 on this. 25. You heard right. Something that originally was $500. I grabbed one for $25. Now, granted, it didn't come with the glasses. I had to buy those separately. And one of them was broken. This pair was broken. I have to tear this apart and fix it. I think it's a bad battery. But, yeah. The glasses themselves cost me $25. So, literally, these cost as much as the freaking TV. And they're also not very comfortable for long periods of time. So, yeah. I got this for $25. And I got it from a guy named Spider. Well, actually, his name wasn't Spider. It was something else. I just like to call him Spider because, I shit you not, the guy I got this TV from had a freaking spider tattooed on his head. Okay? Like, I got this on Facebook Marketplace, and the door opens, and I'm just thinking like, okay, hello. Nicest guy in the world. Complete sweetheart. I would absolutely crack open a beer with this guy. You don't normally see a guy with a spider tattooed on the top of his head every now and then. I mean, hell, his mother was in the room drinking coffee and reading a newspaper. Like, I literally was not threatened by this guy. But, I mean, it's like, you don't see that every day. A tattooed spider on top of a guy's head. So, he was completely nice to me. He told me the story behind how he got this, how someone was throwing this in the trash, and he just grabbed it not knowing what it was. And he's like, yeah, I used it for a while, I just don't need it, it's too small for me. And so, I grabbed it, and literally as I'm leaving the door of his place, another guy showed up hoping to grab this thing. And he's going, did I sell this for too cheap? And I told him, well, I mean, 3D is kind of dead and whatnot, and, probably he could have sold it for 70. I mean, I've seen these sell for about 70 without glasses, so didn't lose too much money there, but regardless, it was a funny experience getting this thing. And so, like, back in 2011, when this was announced, like, it was, like, promising, like, the greatest experience for any gamer. And any gamer who had a PlayStation 3. So, now, in 2024, you may be wondering, how's the TV? Was it a waste of $25, or does it stand the test of time? Well, one of the downsides to this is the size. The 24-inch display. I mean, here, my arm is longer than the screen itself. I didn't mean to do the Seek Idle thing, but yeah, my arm is longer than the TV itself. It is rather small, and for a dorm room, which this is what it was designed for, was dorm rooms back in 2011. You got two guys sharing a dorm room. They got PS3, perfect TV for that size. That was kind of the idea for this. This wasn't designed for people who had huge entertainment systems. This wasn't designed for people who were like living room guys. This was designed for like the dorm room. And so for the size, it sucks in some areas, but it's kind of nice in others. So like one of the downsides is if you're planning on using like PlayStation Move or the 360 Kinect, you're not going to really get a lot of enjoyment out of a screen this small. You're going to want a slightly bigger screen for one of those things. And yeah, you gotta sit kind of close to it to be able to really enjoy it. I'd say probably about like 2-3 feet away would be good, maybe a little bit closer. But yeah, no, there are downsides to the screen being this small. But there are some upsides, especially if you're limited on space. And you have a 4K TV, but you've always wanted to experience 3D. Well, this is kind of perfect because I don't have room for a 43 or a 50 or a 60-inch 3D TV unless I want to get rid of my 4K TV, which 4K has its benefits over 3D. It's a much crisper, cleaner picture, more colors, and so it's kind of hard to justify getting rid of a 3D TV or getting rid of a 4K TV for a 3D TV that's kind of an antique. And yes, they do make a couple of 4K TVs that had 3D options in them. The problem? They are insanely expensive. Like, insanely. There was like one released in 2015 and then like one released in 2017. It was a Samsung, and it's like $8,000 used. It's highly sought after, and like honestly, I'm not looking to drop that kind of cash. I'd rather just pay $25 for an individual monitor that plays 3Ds. That's enough for me. But it's so yeah, the size is a little bit of an issue. If you know what to do, how to manage your distance from it, you should be able to make it work. 2 people, maybe 3 people, you're really pushing. You guys are going to have to really be scrunched together to be able to really watch something on this TV. Now, one of the things they did make a big deal about was the audio on this TV. Not only you got 2 speakers, but you also have a subwoofer in the back. It's okay. I don't think the sound's terrible, but it's nothing to scream home about. You're not going to like throw away a surround sound system with this thing. It's cool they introduced or added in a subwoofer to this, but it's not going to make or break your opinion on sound. So, my goodness, these things get uncomfortable. Ugh. Now, you may notice that these glasses are a little bit bulky. These are active shutter glasses. This TV works with active shutter glasses. And there were 2 types of glasses that came out during this time in 3D. There was active shutter glasses and then passive glasses. The passive glasses are kind of more like what you'd get in the movie theater, where it's just plastic glasses. You put them on, you don't have to worry about them turning on and off, on and off, on and off. The thing with passive glasses, though, is while you don't have to worry about charging them, you're only getting like half the resolution when you watch a movie with them. With the active shutter glasses, the ones you do have to charge, you're getting a movie in full 1080p resolution, supposedly. I haven't done any like deep dive Digital Foundry tests with this, but that is kind of the implementation, is you're going to get the full resolution with the active shutter glasses. Now, this TV claims to run at 230 Hertz refresh rate. It kind of lies about that. I've only ever seen this TV run at 24 frames a second and 60 frames a second. The 240, I guess, comes into play when you're doing a 3D movie because the TV has to work twice as hard. And so in order to get something to run at like 60 frames a second, each image has to be running at 60 frames a second, so they combine that to be 120, and like sometimes they need to even double that, and so that's how you get your 240. It's very deceptive and misleading. If you get one with the box and it says 240 Hertz on it, you're not going to achieve that with any of your movies or games or whatnot, and it's kind of disappointing. Another thing this TV has that no other TV has is this like prototype concept called Simulview, and this was for like the dorm room roommates. This was kind of like built with them in mind. But if you have 2 glasses and like one of 6 games, you can do split screen couch co-op multiplayer with a video game, and each glass shows your side of the screen without having to show the other characters. So a lot of times when people do couch co-op, there is a line right down the middle. Player 1, they can see their thing on this side. Player 2 sees their thing on this side. Simulview takes each side and puts it to each pair of glasses. Now, if you're looking at the screen without the glasses, it looks like a jumbled mess. But with the glasses on, you see only your side, and your opponent right next to you can't see your side. It's kind of a cool concept. It's unfortunate it never took off because one, couch co-op was kind of being killed off by the gaming industry because gaming industry would rather people be playing online rather than on the couch, because on the couch it's usually just one game, one system, two people playing. Online, the two people now have to have two systems, two TVs, two separate games just to play with each other. And so financially it made a lot more sense to push people towards online multiplayer than couch co-op. You still see a couch co-op game made every now and then, but unfortunately couch co-op is kind of dead because the game studios don't like couch co-op. But the Simulview was a really cool concept. I have yet to be able to try it because one of my glasses are broken and I can't turn it on. I need to repair it. The pair I'm wearing right now are the broken ones. And two, I don't really have anyone to play with right now. So, yeah. But I do have like 2 of the 6 games available that you could do Simulview with. They didn't do it that much, but if you're lucky enough to be able to get this set up and have one of those games to do it with a friend or a sibling, it's kind of a cool thing to play around with. And I am looking forward to playing around with it when I eventually find someone to do co-op with. So, anyway, moving on. Now, with this TV, I've noticed an issue with ghosting. If you don't know what ghosting is where each eye is getting a separate image, and your eyes will kind of combine the image, and they don't quite match all the time, and you see like a ghosting effect where it looks like there's like a little like aurora around an object or a person or something like that. And this is a common issue that a lot of people have with 3D TVs, and it's like, hey, how do I fix it? And there's like 1,000 solutions online to like fix ghosting in 3D TVs. This TV does have ghosting, especially with 3D games. And in terms of the ghosting, one thing you definitely want to do, especially if you're running a PlayStation 3 through this, and you most likely will, because a PlayStation 3 can do 3D games and it can play 3D Blu-ray movies. So you just need one of these and then a PlayStation 3. Any PlayStation 3 will do, and you can start enjoying Blu-ray movies no problem. You don't have to get a dedicated Blu-ray player. So in terms of the PlayStation 3, I would recommend you go to your display settings and do the auto detect feature, because it will auto detect the TV and kind of set everything up how you need it set up for display reasons. And I noticed that ghosting in 3D movies wasn't as bad after doing the auto detect than it was before doing the auto detect. I ran this a couple of days without doing any like auto detect in the display or messing the PS3's displays. I played around with the TV's displays, which are kind of limited, but you know, this didn't come with a manual. I was getting used to it. And so after doing the auto detect in the display settings, I noticed that 3D movies had a much reduced ghosting effect. Video games, it's more on a game-by-game basis, simply because video games a lot of times will have 3D settings, and so you'll have to tweak those. Uncharted 3 has a nasty ghosting effect, but you can turn the 3D down to reduce that, and like around the 25% tile mark, it's barely noticeable, but the 3D's much more reduced. If you have it at 100%, the 3D's great, but there is extreme ghosting, some of the worst ghosting I've ever seen in a video game. One of the surprising ones I've noticed is with Avatar. The 3D is amazing with this game, but the frame rate drops to like 5 frames a second. It is shocking how bad the frame rate is that game when you have the 3D enabled. But yes, definitely the ghosting is more prevalent on video games than on movies, especially after doing that auto detect trick. There might be ways to fix this. In general, there might be ways to fix it on a game-by-game basis, but I haven't really come across it. It's just something you should know. I don't think it's going to completely ruin the experience, but definitely we still don't have TVs that have matched the theater quality of 3D yet. And speaking on that subject, 3D is kind of still around. They still offer movies in 3D. It's just not as prevalent. Like, you're not seeing television ads and TV spots saying "see it in 3D." You don't really see those anymore. The only exception to that is maybe Avatar 2. They kind of had TV spots saying "see it in 3D." But like a lot of times when I'm ordering tickets at the theaters, I'll just see, oh, like this is available in 3D. Anyway, I don't need to see in 3D, but like, you know, and it kind of makes sense for movie theaters to still offer movies in 3D because they can have the tickets more expensive, and it helps, you know, alleviate the cost of the film if they could sell, you know, half the movie tickets in 3D. So I can still understand why movies are offered in 3D, and I think it's kind of cool that they still make movies in 3D. Now, you may be wondering, how is this as a 2D... how is this as a 2D display for just average gaming? Well, there's some, like, interesting notes about that. So, if you want, like, the purest, most true way of experiencing an Xbox 360 or PlayStation 3, because yes, this thing does play Xbox 360s. This thing will play anything with an HDMI cord. So if you want to do Wii, if you want to play your PS5 on here, as long as it has an HDMI out cord, it'll play on here. Now, PS5 and Series X, you're not going to really want to play on here because it's only a 1080p screen. And you know, those are 4K systems that run at higher resolutions. So definitely you're going to want to reserve this more for like older consoles. But like playing on a 4K TV, the 360 and the PlayStation 3, they work great, but there's always been just like this slight, the picture's not quite perfect. Especially with the 360, when you're looking at the menu, like the menu font is just, you can see some anti-aliasing with the menu font because it's being stretched out 1080p to like a 4K type of display. And so like Xbox has always had a little bit of an issue kind of perfectly fitting a 4K image. On here, they both look great. And this was a television designed for gaming, so they definitely made sure to have the colors just right. They made sure that this was a good television to use for gaming at the time. The Wii, the PlayStation 3, and the Xbox 360. And so, definitely, if you're just going for that nostalgic feel like people do, they get those old tube televisions to play PS1 games to get that perfect retro look. Getting this to get that retro look for like 2011, you know, PS3, Xbox 360 games, yeah, it definitely is a great picture for those types of systems. Now, one thing it does do that kind of is a negative, if you don't know about it, it's not, is it removes my 60 frames per second cheat that I had on these consoles. So I made a previous video on how I can play every single video game I own at 60 frames per second. And that's because of my TV. I have a TV that has a fake 120 frames per second type mode on it. It's not really. I explain it all in my video. I'll put the link down in the description below if you want to learn more about that and how you can play all your games at 60 frames per second. Unfortunately, this TV, you can't force it to run frames faster. And so because of that, I'm playing all the games at their original frame rate on this model. So with some games that have like really choppy frame rates, I might switch it back over to the 4K screen to run those at better frame rates. Another thing worth pointing out is that, like earlier, Kinect and PlayStation 3 Move aren't ideal for this. Yes, you can use those with this, but it's such a small screen, it's going to be lost on you, the experience. You definitely want to do those on a bigger screen. So, these TVs are actually known to fail. Apparently, there's this like one chip that burns out. They're like ticking time bombs, and they will burn out over time. And once that happens, the TV's dead, right? Well, actually, no. Apparently, if you have any type of knowledge with soldering, which I do, you could easily fix it as long as you have the right chip that's been flashed with the right information. You can fix it. And so I'm not really concerned about this failing, because when it does, I'll just get the right chip and fix it, because, you know, I'm good at fixing stuff. But it's just something you should keep aware of in case you're looking for one of these specifically. They do have a tendency of dying off because of this one chip. It's not going to be completely bricked, and so you might want to keep that in mind. Another thing I've noticed is that a couple of times my PlayStation 3 has like frozen up while doing 3D. I don't think it's my PS3 failing. I think it's just the 3D is so taxing on the software that's just like it get confused. So that's just something worth keeping in mind. Now, there was another downside to this TV that a lot of people criticized when this first came out, and that is the highly glossy and reflective glass screen. You could probably see some reflections in this screen now as I'm speaking. But the thing about that is I kind of now see the glossy glass screen as a benefit and a saving grace to this TV, because they don't make these TVs anymore. They don't make 3D TVs anymore. And if you've ever seen a current TV, they have screens that are like these plastic screens that are specifically designed to pull any oil and moisture out of your fingertip and hold onto it for the rest of end times. Okay, like, it is such a pain in the ass moving around my TV so that I don't touch the screen, because if I touch the screen, that fingerprint is going to be there till the end of days, and there's no way to get it cleaned off. And I absolutely hate that about TVs, where you accidentally touch the screen. It's like, oh gosh, there's a smudge there now, and there's no way to get rid of it. But with this, the glass like screen, it's great. I can clean it. There's no gash in the screen because the glass has kind of protected it. Fingerprints came off super easy. I can touch the screen all day long and then wipe the fingerprints off, no problem. And so yeah, it sucks that it's reflective, but hey, for a piece of dead technology that no one's making new ones of anymore, it's great. As long as the chips don't fail, this 3D TV is going to last a long time. And so I kind of see it as a blessing now that it has a glass screen on it. And so yeah, I kind of see that as a net benefit now. Now, one of the interesting things is, after I got the 3D TV, I started looking for 3D games. And like, one of the interesting things is Xbox 360 did, like, as you see right here, did actually offer 3D gaming. You couldn't do 3D movies because they didn't have Blu-ray. They had HD DVD. That's another story for another time. Definitely, there's some really entertaining stories on HD DVD and the battle between them and Blu-ray. So definitely check this out. But like, it's hard to find comprehensive lists because like, even Sony has an official list on their PlayStation blog that's incomplete. It doesn't name everything. And like, it's really hard finding a comprehensive list for Xbox. I think I had to use the Wayback Machine or archive.org to find a list that gives you a full list of Xbox 360 games. I shit you not. There's like no current list. There's a list of all 3D stereoscopic games, but that counts games from like the 70s as well. And like when they say something's available on PlayStation 3 and Xbox, they are not specific if it's NVIDIA 3D or something else. But anyway, looking through my own collection, I did find that I had about 5 3D games on the 360, one of which is Call of Duty Black Ops, Crysis 3, which has some serious ghosting issues. I need to play around with that. Black Ops wasn't so bad. Gears of War 3 was pretty interesting in 3D. I'm going to definitely look forward to playing that. One of the best ones in 3D was Tekken Tag Tournament 2, especially looking at the 3D models. And then Ghost Recon Future Soldier was interesting in 3D. But yeah, not a ton of games on the 360 that are available in 3D, but it's still interesting nonetheless. Now, in terms of PlayStation 3, the lists are a little more comprehensive, but it's still kind of hard to find everything because, like I said earlier, on the PlayStation blog post that they have about like every game that you can play in 3D on PlayStation 3, they don't list everything. Like, they don't have Assassin's Creed 3 on that list, and this has 3D capabilities. I do need to return that one because the disc didn't work. But like, I'm pretty sure they didn't have Avatar the game on the list, and like, this is one of the first games you could do 3D on. But like, I mean, there's some like kiddie type games like Ratchet and Clank for Frontal Assault that's available in 3D. There's Sly Cooper with Thieves in Time that's available in 3D. That one actually looked pretty good in 3D. I only played it for a few seconds. You got Mortal Kombat in 3D, and so that's going to be a lot of fun in 3D. Then they didn't do it with the first God of War collection, but the PSP God of War collection, it's available in 3D. I haven't tested that out yet, but I'm sure it's going to be pretty cool. House of the Dead Overkill Extended Cut, that has a 3D mode on it, and that's one of the few games where you can actually use the PlayStation Move and 3D. And I don't know how that's going to work on such a small screen, but we're going to try it. And then, of course, there's Uncharted 3 in 3D. And I played that for a few minutes. Definitely saw some graphical issues. Might even do a separate review on just the 3D experience itself, since I've already reviewed Uncharted 3 for the PlayStation 4. And then you have SOCOM 4 in 3D, and this is another one of those games that you can use the PlayStation Move as well as 3D. And then, of course, you have Killzone 3 and then Resistance 3. And these two games, they had both the sharpshooter mechanic as an option as well as 3D. And I don't know how realistic it is to play the entire game with both those enabled. I'm going to see if it's possible, but, you know, interesting that they offered both of those. And then in terms of movies were kind of interesting because they stopped kind of doing 3D home video, with the exception of Warner Bros. Apparently Warner Bros. Still makes 3D home video. Like, they came out with Dune in 3D. You can buy it now on Amazon. It's like, wow. But no, like, every now and then Warner Bros. Will release a new movie with a 3D disc in it. It's like, that is impressive. A lot of studios have stopped locally. They continue to make 3D in England, and then when they stopped doing that, they're still making 3D tapes in Australia and in Japan, apparently. So, and a lot of these are region free, so there's a lot of like Japanese 3D imports, a lot of Australian 3D imports, and like one of the most desired Australian 3D movies is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, because apparently the 3D on that movie is pretty incredible, and yet they only offered it in Australia for like a home release. And so I see that go for a lot of money online. But like, I just recently grabbed a couple of 3D movies, and like I have some on the way to me in the mail. Like I have Guardians of the Galaxy on its way to me, but like one of the 3D movies I had inadvertently was Alita Battle Angel, because I wanted that on 4K, and surprisingly, this is one of the few 4K movies that actually has 3D Blu-ray packed in with it. And I tried the 3D on it. I didn't watch the entire movie, but it is quite impressive. The CGI in that movie was already really amazing, but the 3D just kind of like pushes the CGI that extra step. There are a few CGI things that it does show some rough CGI that you didn't notice on the 2D screen, but most of the CGI, it's just like, that looks so much better in 3D. And then of course another one, this is a movie that I saw in the theaters in 3D, and I absolutely loved it in 3D, and when I got a 3D TV, it's like, oh yeah, I'm getting this. And that's Transformers Dark of the Moon. And I absolutely enjoyed that in 3D. I'm looking forward to watching this again in 3D. Big surprise for me, and I grabbed this for like $1 when Family Video was closing down, but Sin City: A Dame to Kill For. Like when that menu popped on, I was just like, wow. I kind of wish they re-released the first one in 3D, which unfortunately they don't, because that would just be amazing then to see that one. But I'm looking forward to seeing Sin City 2 in 3D. And then of course Resident Evil Retribution, I have that in 3D. I'm looking for Afterlife, because Resident Evil Afterlife and Retribution, say what you will about the stories, the 3D on those movies are really freaking awesome. I absolutely loved those movies in 3D. And then the 6th one, the 3D was dog shit. It was so disappointing how bad the 3D was in the 6th one. It's like, dude, guys, you were killing it with 4 and 5. What happened? Definitely, I'm starting to build out a 3D collection. And but to conclude this video, growing up, I saw a few movies in 3D like Avatar, Resident Evil 4, 5, and Transformers, and like it was just a little taste of something I could have when I saw it at the theaters, because I thought that would be so cool to have a home 3D TV and you could watch 3D movies and whatnot. And when 3D died, it's like, why did it die? And 4K became far more desirable. And just over the years, like, yeah, it would have been so cool to have a 3D TV. It would have been so cool to have a 3D TV. And now that I have one, it's like, there are so many things I want to try in 3D. So many games, so many movies, and this is definitely a blast from my childhood. Absolutely. 3D is not really relevant anymore unless you're going to the theaters. They do still offer 3D at movie theaters for certain movies, and I think that's awesome, but they don't really make 3D TVs anymore, and that's just kind of surprising to me. Maybe 3D might make a comeback, I don't know, but honestly, I think this is a really cool, like, historical piece of entertainment history to get. A 3D TV. Even if it's a small little monitor like this, I feel like Michael Scott from The Office with his plasma TV. Oh yeah. 20 inches. Yeah. Or no, that was like an 8-inch TV. What was the size on that plasma TV Michael Scott had in The Office? And yeah, he like popped it out. It's like, now it's full screen. I kind of feel like Michael Scott with The Office there. But no, I absolutely have been enjoying this. It's so crazy seeing a 3D experience in my entertainment room. And now, is it ridiculously small? Absolutely. Does it have some ghosting issues? Absolutely. But hey, I'm getting to enjoy some of my favorite 3D movies at home now. I don't have to just think back to that one time I saw it. I was like, man, the 3D was so awesome. I can now experience that. And that's kind of cool. I probably should try and get the Transformer movies that came out in 3D. Yeah, I probably should. But anyway, so that's been my video on the PlayStation 3D display. Do any of you guys have them out there? If so, have any of them broken for you? And if so, don't throw those away. Those can be repaired. You just need to find someone who knows what they're doing. But yeah, no. This is a blast from the past, and it's a piece of gaming history that I'm glad I have. And definitely I want to try and keep alive and working and running. And so, yeah, that's about it. So, that's been my video on the PlayStation 3D display. My name's Chris Ricano with Lemon Reviews, and that... Oh, thankfully will be all. Man, those glasses are uncomfortable.